Hello from our studios on a rare rainy day in Southern California. This is another episode of RUNTALK. I'm your host, Dr. Jason Karp. On today's episode, I want to do something a little different because today is the last episode of 2020. And so today's episode is all about running into 2021. A lot of people are very happy that 2020 is coming to an end because of the nature of what this year has been. But Friday is not going to be any different than Thursday, but it's a chance for you to make it different. The world is not going to be any different. We're still going to be in the middle of a pandemic, and it's going to be a while before this whole thing is over. But we each have the power to make something different. Humans like to mark the calendar. Humans like to celebrate changes of years and holidays and things like that. That's one thing that makes humans unique from all other animals. Other animals, if you have a dog or if you have a cat, that dog or cat has no idea that a new year is starting on Friday. They just live every day. But humans have this quirky thing we do. We like to mark the date. We like to celebrate the change of a year. We like to make note of things like that. But we have the chance to start something different in a new year. And so today's episode is all about how you can take your running in a different direction and do something different at the start of a new year. And so, hopefully sometime next year, races will come back on the schedule and we'll all be able to run races again. I haven't run a race since early March. I'd like to run a race myself. So hopefully soon we will be able to do that. And so the new year gives us a chance to look at things in a different way and take our running in a different direction. It's a chance for us to pivot, a chance for us to have different goals that we set for ourselves, and then come up with a strategy to train to reach those goals. And so feel free to ask questions. I would love for this to be question driven today. But the major thing I want to talk about today, as we're just a few days away from a new year, is to think about, what is it that you want to accomplish with your running, whether it's a time goal or it's a place goal, if you want to place, if you want to win your age group at a big race or something, whatever it is, then, come up with a different strategy to help you achieve that. Runners tend to get lost in the process. We tend to take a business analogy. I'm in MBA school right now, so I think in terms of business analogies these days. But runners tend to work in the business. They tend to work in their running rather than on their running, rather than on the business. And it's important to reach a higher level of performance. It's important to work on your running, not just in your running. Don't get so caught up in the actual act of how many miles I'm going to run every day or what heart rate or pace I'm going to run. That's all fine and good, but you also need to take a higher level approach and look down on your training and think about, well, how am I going to work on the training? What am I going to do differently? What strategies am I going to employ this year that were different than last year? How am I going to reach the level I want to reach? And so there's a lot of training theories. I have a new book that's going to be coming out next year that I spent a good portion of the second half of this year working on running periodization and different theories of training and how to set up the training plan. So I'm looking forward to that book coming out next year. And there's a lot of alternative kinds of theories. And so one way that I could guide you about this is to tell you to look at how you've trained in the past and what has the result of that training been. And then ask yourself, did I reach what I wanted to reach based on the kind of training I did, on the structure of the training? How many miles a week did I run? When did I start doing the more quality training? Did I take a linear periodized approach where I worked with high volume first and then put the intensity in? Did I do something different than that? Look at the actual structure of your training plan and ask yourself if you got the result that you wanted from that. And if not, then this is a good opportunity as we go into the new year to make some kind of a change. So for example, I know myself that I've never been very good at the long endurance work. I've always been better at the shorter, faster work. But lately, as I've gotten older, it hasn't been working for me. And so even I myself, I'm going to look at taking a different approach as we get into the new year and restructure my training to try to figure out what I need to do as I'm getting older. I've been running for 36 years, 6 days a week, and I need to change strategy. I can't do the same thing now that I did when I was a teenager, running a lot faster then than I am now. It doesn't work. And so coming into the new year gives us a chance to look at things with a fresh pair of eyes. And that's my way of also saying that another way that you can take a different approach is to work with a coach. This isn't a sales pitch. If you want to work with me, happy to work with you, but it's not a sales pitch. I don't care. You hired me, hire somebody else. Doesn't matter. But well, it does matter. But hire a coach. That's one way that you can look at things differently this new year, is to work with somebody who can help guide you, who can help direct you into where your strengths are. And maybe, everybody wants to run a marathon these days, but not everyone is suited for the marathon. Maybe some people are suited for shorter races. And it helps to have a fresh pair of eyes, an outside pair of eyes, who can look at your training, who can look at how you respond to different kinds of training, and then guide you into what they feel is best for you, where you're going to have the most amount of success. Don't get so enamored with the marathon just because it's the marathon. A lot of people would be better at shorter, faster races. So that's one way that you can do something different this year, is to hire a coach. As I always tell people, if you have a legal issue that you need to fight in court, would you try to be your own lawyer? Would you fight your own legal issues? Would you represent yourself in court? Or would you hire an attorney? Of course you would hire an attorney. If you have a cavity to fill in your mouth, would you try to fill your own cavity? Or would you go to a dentist? You go to a dentist. You go to a professional who knows how to do that kind of work. And so with coaching, with training, it's no different. I'm amazed these days how many people self-coach. It's like you wouldn't represent yourself in court. You wouldn't try to fill your own cavity. So don't try to train yourself unless you're a training expert. Leave that to the expert. Go to an expert to help you do that. And it's the same. It's the same strategy for anything in life. Do you try to do it yourself, or do you hire somebody who's proficient in that? And so that's one thing that you can do that's different in the new year, is to look around for who you feel would be the best coach for you. And there's a lot of things that go into a coach. It's not just the training expertise. It's personality differences and things like that. And you got to work. It's a working relationship. Just like you would choose a lawyer or choose a doctor, you choose a coach taking the same approach. So that's one big thing that you could do differently, to run into 2021. Is, have a goal, set a goal for yourself, and think about different ways that you can help yourself to reach the goal. Think outside of the running shoe. I don't like to say think outside the box. That's cliche. Us runners, we say think outside the running shoe. So think about, well, what ways can I train differently, or what kind of outside help can I get? Whether it's a coach, or if you've got biomechanical issues, maybe a physical therapist, whatever the case may be. Think about somebody from the outside that you can bring in to help you. Businesses do this all the time. They have marketing consultants and other kinds of consultants in different areas. The CEO of a business doesn't try to do everything. They don't try to do the finances of the business, as well as the marketing, as well as the sales. They hire different people for different areas of the business. And you can think of yourself and your running as your own business. It's the business of running for you. And so work with people from the outside who can help you achieve what you want to achieve. If you do choose to do it yourself, then spend time reading. Spend a lot of time reading on different training strategies and understanding what goes into physiological performance and endurance performance, and understand the role of endurance training and speed training and strength training, what those things do to the human body, and try to wrap your head around an understanding of that, so that you can then plan out your own training and guide yourself. And so there's a lot of different strategies that you can take to try to think outside the running shoe and reach the goals that you have for yourself. But a new year is a chance to do that. It's a chance to reinvent yourself, reinvent the way you do things. Especially now during this time where everyone is stuck at home during the pandemic, and a lot of crazy stuff going on happening this year, but it's a chance to be creative and really think in a different way instead of doing things. Runners always tend to do things the exact same way all the time, but this is a chance to try to do things differently. You know, maybe taking a speed approach is not the best way for you. Maybe taking a higher mileage approach is the best way, or maybe it's about balancing the mileage with just enough intensity. There's many ways to train. I've always believed, and I still believe, that there is one best way to train, but it's very difficult to figure out what that one best way is. I've always been of the opinion that good runners run as fast as they do because of their talent, not so much because of their training. The training just brings the talent to the forefront, but a lot of runners train and run well because they're talented, and the talent is what's driving the bus. But imagine if you take the talent, whatever level of talent that is, whether it's Olympic talent or just good recreational runner talent, whatever the level of talent is, imagine if you take that talent and over many years of trial and error, but it's applied trial and error through an understanding of the physiology and understanding of the science, and then you take that science and you apply it, and then through the years of trial and error with that science, you figure out what is the real best way for you to train to reach your physiological potential. That's a beautiful journey, and I still struggle with that myself after all these years of running. I still don't know what the best solution is for me. What's the best combination of different styles of training for me? And so, but it's a beautiful exploration of your own physiology, of your own running, to try to figure that all out. But this is a great opportunity to take a different approach than what you've been doing in the past, instead of getting so locked into the same approach year after year. So let's see if there are any questions. Run with Ali. What do you think the most important thing is that a coach provides for a runner? Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, again, I liken it to hiring any other professional. Like, you could ask, well, what's the most important thing an attorney provides to a client? And the answer to that would be the expertise of the law, of how to form logical, cogent arguments to put before a judge or a jury. That's something that the average person is not going to know. And so it's the same thing that applies to a runner and coach. Or a coach, like any other professional, provides the expertise. That's the first and foremost thing. Then beyond that, you have the motivation, the inspiration, the making the runner believe in themselves. It's all those things. All those things come into play, of course, just like they would do for anything. A lawyer's not going to tell the client, oh, I think we're going to lose. Obviously the lawyer makes the client believe that they're going to win the case, even if the lawyer thinks they're not going to win. So you make the client believe things to stay positive. So that's a part of everything. Everyone tries to put a positive spin on things, and sometimes that's necessary. But first and foremost is that if the coach is looked at as a professional, then the first and foremost thing that the coach gives to the client is the expertise of the subject area. And it's the same as hiring anybody. It's the same reason why you go to a dentist, because the dentist knows more about your teeth than you do. It's the same reason why you go to a doctor rather than try to prescribe your own medication to yourself, because that doctor knows more than you do. And so that's true for every profession. You go to somebody who is an expert in that area, who knows more than you do, who can then help guide you along the way. Whatever the goal that you have is, and whether it's a running goal, or it's you got to fix your tooth, or I keep coming back to that analogy. But it's the same thing. I look at coaching the way I look at any other profession. You want to build a house, you can build the house yourself, or you go to an architect and a civil engineer to build a house who has expertise about strength of materials and why to use this material, rather than this material, or how do you make a house, in California, how do you make a house earthquake proof? You got to have a knowledge of how to, the materials and how the structure is built to be able to do that. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, Ali, but that's the major answer, is because you're seeking advice from a professional who knows more about the subject than you do. That's the single biggest reason to hire any kind of outside help, regardless of the nature of the help. It's a good question. Thank you for that. Fit for your adventure. Oh, I love it when people ask me questions. How can you find a coach in your area, and what qualifications should one look for? Well, there are tens of thousands of coaches all over social media, but what you should look for Again, it's just like any profession. You look for someone who's got the expertise first and foremost. And then beyond that, then you look for someone who you can work with, who's got the kind of personality that you like to work with. Ask yourself, well, what do you need in a coach? Do I need somebody who's a taskmaster, who is going to hold me accountable? Or do I need a softer approach? Do I need somebody who's going to consult with me, and allow my input? So ask yourself, what do you feel that you need? Do you need to have your hand held throughout the whole process? Or do you not need much communication at all? You just need someone to write your workouts, and then you go and follow the workouts. So it's important to know, well, what do you think you need as a coach, as a runner? What kind of coach do you need? You got to be able to match that. A great analogy for this one is when I was working on my PhD. It's the selection of an academic advisor, because it's a close working relationship with your advisor. And I had two different advisors at two different universities for my PhD, and they both had different work ethics. And one saw the role as a PhD advisor like it was an apprenticeship, that the student served an apprenticeship, and the advisor really guided the student. The other one was like hands off, and it's like, well, this is your PhD, you got to figure it out all on your own. And so you have to ask yourself, as a doctoral student, well, which style do you need, which is going to help you? And so it's the same thing with a coach. Ask yourself, well, what do I need as a runner? What kind of coaching style is best for what I need? Do I need a coach that's hands-on? Do I need a coach that's hands-off? How much specific guidance do I need? Do I only need the coach to create an overall structure, and then I go and figure it out on my own based on my life schedule? Or do I want to know every single day what I should do, and then I just go and follow what the coach tells me to do? So that all depends on what you think you need, what your best style is, what works for you. Do you need a hardcore approach? Do you need a soft approach? So you have to know yourself and know what you respond to. Just like any teacher, there's different kind of teaching styles. Everybody, on here, we all went to high school. Most of us went to college. Some of us went to a lot of college. And there were some professors you really liked and some you didn't like. Why'd you like some high school teachers and some college professors and others you didn't like? They have different styles. There's different methods of teaching. Some people learn through just listening. Some people learn by being shown, and so you have to ask yourself, well, what is the style that best suits your needs and your learning? Because coaching is teaching. And so how do you best learn from a teacher? And ask yourself those questions first before you go and seek out a coach, so that you know exactly what to look for in a coach. So that's all the other stuff. Primary is the expert. And again, same thing, like if you, God forbid, you get cancer, who do you want to go to? You want to go to a cancer expert. You want to go to an oncologist. You don't go to a general practitioner to help you with your cancer, right? To treat your cancer, you go to an oncologist. If you have a brain tumor, you don't go to a general practitioner to treat your brain tumor. You go to a neurosurgeon. And so it's the same thing with coaching or with any profession. If you have a need, you want to learn how to be a better runner, you go to somebody with that expertise. So expertise is the first thing. Know somebody who knows how to train runners. And then beyond that, then you ask yourself all these other questions. What style of coaching is best for me? What kind of teaching do I need from a coach? All those things. The personality, all those things that come into play, because it's going to be a close working relationship. Somebody could be the most brilliant person in the world, but they're not the right match for that runner because the personality differences and the way this coach teaches may not match with how that athlete learns. So all these things have to come into play. Okay, so I hope I'm answering all your questions. Let me know if I'm answering all your questions. So beyond that, I really just wanted to spend this episode today talking about, the change of year and going into the year thinking differently, not just doing the same thing, because it's very easy to get locked into specific habits. And, most people have New Year's resolutions, but most New Year's resolutions don't get followed. By a few weeks into the year, people have already lost their New Year's resolutions. And so ask yourself, well, what do you want to be different? And this is a great time for that, because this change of year is different than most changes of year, given what we're going through. And so I think people need to really have a handle on something different this next year. We're all hoping that 2021 is going to be different than 2020. But we can't change external factors. We can't change the speed at which this vaccine is going to be spread across the country and across the world. That's out of our control. We can't really control, when this pandemic is going to be over. The only people who can control that, we can't control them. That's up to the people who can distribute the vaccine and get it in people's arms as fast as possible and make sure it's safe for everybody. And we don't have control over that. There are only a select number of people who have control over that. But the hard work has been done. The fact that I hope most people watching, whatever political side of the aisle you're on, I hope that everyone can recognize the magic of science that has happened this year, that to be able to create a vaccine like this in this short amount of time is really a miracle. When you're on the inside of science, you know how slow science moves. Experimentation. I remember when I was back in school and doing experiments and having to deal with human subjects committees at universities and trying to get research published. And it's a very, very, very slow-moving process. When a study comes out and you read that study in a journal, that actual experiment was done 2-3 years prior to when it actually appears in the journal. So, it's a long process to get scientific information out to the general public from the time an experiment is designed and then it's done, and you've got to get the human subjects in the lab and do it, and even on animal subjects. It's a very long process. So to be able to develop a vaccine like this that is safe and effective, it's a big win for science that this was able to be done as fast as it was. It's pretty incredible when you look at how quickly this was able to happen. We could have been in this pandemic a lot longer. But anyway, that's a whole different subject. So look at this new year as a chance to really change the way that you do things, and whether that means hiring a coach, then hire a coach. Whether that means getting a training program off my website, there's my quick plug for a training program on my website. If it means that, then do that. Whatever it means. I don't care. You can buy a training program from me or not. You decide for yourself what you need to be successful, but do something different this coming year than what you've done in the past. Work on your training rather than in your training. I talk about that a lot in my next book. I will make a plug for my next book that comes out. I don't know when exactly next year, but sometime next year it'll come out. Because I talk about that a lot in the book on training theories, that work on the training, not just in the training. Look at the structure of the training, think about how you're going about doing the training, apply the scientific method of coming up with hypotheses and then testing those hypotheses. And so take that kind of approach to your training in the new year and look at things that you can do that are different, that you haven't done before. And hopefully that'll make you successful. And then if not, then pivot again and do something else. You have plenty of time to experiment, but the experiment is not arbitrary. It's based on science, it's based on experience, it's based on research, it's based on what you think could work and have a reason why you think that could work. And so use this as an opportunity to run into 2021 and trying something different and really reinventing yourself as a runner. So I'm happy to answer more questions if people have more questions to answer. Same thing like with things like with injuries. Ask yourself why you're getting injured if you have a lot of injuries, and take a different approach to treating your injuries and getting to the root cause of your injuries. And so for next week's show, next week will be the first show of 2021. I really would like to have it more audience directed. It is weird. I'm sitting here looking at myself while I'm talking. And I would like to get more of the audience involved. So feel free to send me your questions. You can either send me a direct message through Instagram or Facebook. We're on both platforms here. Or send me an email, Jason at run-fit.com. Send me an email with questions. And I'm happy to have a whole show just of audience questions. That could be a lot of fun to be able to answer people's questions. And so today I really just wanted to have a quick little show about taking a different approach in the new year as we wind down this year and we look at things a little differently in 2021. Look at different strategies. because it is amazing to me that, humans, we do get very locked into doing things a certain way. I mean, here's a perfect example. Even with the um, the strategies that we hear coming from the medical professionals, the advice that we hear coming from the public health officials about the pandemic, and they repeat the same thing over and over and over again. Wear a mask, social distance, don't go out unless you absolutely have to. We hear the same thing for 9.5 months now. We've been hearing the same thing over and over. But what all of these medical professionals and public health officials don't seem to want to recognize is that in America, we live in an individualistic society, not a collectivist one. In a place like China, they live in a collectivist society. They do what's best for the greater good. They don't have a choice. The government says do this, and they do this together as a society. Whereas in America, we do what's best for us. If we want to go see our relatives in a different state, we go on a plane and we go. And people do what's best for themselves. Americans are naturally selfish. We don't like to be told what to do. We like to do what's best for ourselves. We don't do what's best for the greater good. And that's okay. There's no judgment there. But what the medical professionals and public health officials don't seem to understand is that the strategy that they're trying to take, do this, do this, do that, that doesn't work in this country. And so what I think the different approach that they need to take is that all these medical professionals and public health officials, they need to work together with sociologists, with cultural anthropologists, people who really understand American culture. And then if they all work together, they can come up with a plan that's going to work rather than keep harping on the same thing that doesn't work in our kind of society, in our kind of culture. It's like they're trying to put a square peg into a round hole, and that doesn't work. You have to look at the whole picture, and then you have to pivot based on that whole picture. And so getting back to running, it's the same thing. If you keep trying to do something the same way and it's not working, then you have to take a bird's eye view approach and look at the structure of your training plan and understand why it's not working, and then try a different approach. And the new year gives us a chance to really look at things with a fresh pair of eyes, whether it's you doing it for yourself or having a coach do that for you, is to take a different direction in your running and in your life. And that's what, again, that's what makes humans different from all other animals, is that we have cognition about this. Other animals don't know the difference. Friday, January 1st, is going to be the exact same thing as Thursday, December 31st, to your dog or your cat or whatever other pet you have. Some people have pet iguanas, some people have pet rabbits, some people have pet snakes. Whatever pet you have, they don't understand the concept of tomorrow. They don't understand the concept of 2021 versus 2020. To them, it's every day is the same. They don't know. What makes humans unique is that we have cognition about this. We have an understanding about this. And so we better use that to our advantage. Since we understand these things, we might as well use it and exploit it. And so that's really what I wanted to say today on the last episode of 2020. And run into the new year with taking a different approach, and like I said, whether you coach yourself or you hire a coach, just figure out what's best for you, and hope that you can take a different direction and look at things a little bit differently in this new year. So again, thank you for joining us for another episode. This is, I think, our 30th or 31st episode. As long as we keep having an audience, I see people here, so as long as we keep having an audience, then I'll keep doing the show. Maybe one day I'll get on the TV screen and have my own real studio. Until that happens, I've got my home studio here. And so I urge you, go to the website, runfit.com, and there's plenty of training programs on the website. Follow I think I have the 20-week-long training program, so if you want to do that, then do that. Or, my books are a great source of information. And like I said, another book coming out next year. I'm writing another one right now. And so a lot of good things still happening, even though, we're all pretty sad about the way this year has gone. There's a lot of great things to still celebrate, and so celebrate the new year, have a safe and happy new year, and do something different in 2021. Reinvent yourself, start something different, take a different direction with things, and use this as an opportunity. I'm always here for you, and feel free to email me or or get in touch with me through social media. So thank you for coming. So Happy New Year, and we'll see you next Monday. See you next year in 2021. Bye for now.